What's next doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen by chance. What's next happens when experience meets expertise, when data meets dollars, and when steel meets earth. What's next happens when the promising work of Pioneer state-of-the-art research centers meets the unsparing challenges of more than 17,000 on-farm trials. Our ultimate goal is to bring the next seed breakthrough to your fields, because Pioneer isn't just our name, it's our mission. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Thursday edition of the show. Hey, thanks so much for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. And, of course, big shout out to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast. And, of course, you can get the podcast wherever you download your podcast. I don't care where you are. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you know the drill. Any of them. We're Thursday here today, so that means we've got a Farmer Rapid Fire. That's right. And the Farmer Rapid Fire is brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. You know, for more than 90 years, Pioneer has developed and tested products to meet your local challenges. With new Optimum Glide canola, Enlist E3 soybeans, to performing corn products and industry-leading traits and technologies to maximizing your yield potential, Pioneer's on-the-ground teams can help you get the right products for your fields. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more. Big thanks to Pioneer for being the sponsor of the Farmer Rapid Fire. And like we do every week, we're going to be joined today by a Pioneer agronomist. And today that's Nicci Rasmussen, who's in southern Alberta. So looking forward to hearing about that southern Alberta corn crop, of course, under irrigation and mainly used for silage. And from what I've been seeing from the road as I drive around these parts, things look pretty darn good. There's going to be some silage put up in the pit this year for sure. I wish the dryland crop, we could say, looked as good as some of the irrigation does. But that's what water does, everybody. And, there's a lot of concern in these parts about needing a snowpack and the supply of irrigation water for next year. So that's something to keep our eyes on as we start to talk a little bit more about 2024. Also, we'll be joined by 4 farmers from across the country. We got Charlene Wattam from Renfrew, Ontario. We got Steve Terpstra, who's from Atwood, Ontario, and I believe he is out on the interstate driving somewhere in the U.S. We got Riley Anderson, who is in Morris, Manitoba, and Corey Loessin is in Radisson, Saskatchewan. So the gang is all here. We're fired up. They're ready to share their stories. And I'm looking forward to hearing about where their yields are to the expectation. There's one thing about comparing your yield to like the average or your best ever, maybe it's your worst ever, but there's also your expectation. Now, I think there's a bit of a habit, we tend to be a little bit more pessimistic on the scale in terms of what we think the crop could do. I think it's a natural human behavior. It makes sense to me. I think I would be absolutely no different. So we'll hear from the gang today on what their expectation is. And maybe, I would imagine some of them are actually done harvest. Like Corey Loessin probably is done harvest based on where he is and how dry it's been. But we'll get some accurate yield numbers from him for sure. And of course, out in Ontario, the soybeans just starting and the corn yet to come. And there's a lot of anticipation about that corn crop. There is no doubt out there in Ontario. If you have any feedback on today's show, there's lots of ways to get a hold of me. Okay, you can email me shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also find us across all the different social media platforms. We're on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, I should say X, Instagram, and Threads and TikTok. We are Real Agriculture on all of them. Make sure when you go to our YouTube channel, you hit subscribe. We've got a number of podcasts launching this week. We've got a new one with Jacob Shapiro of Cognitive Investments. We've also got a great new one started with Jim Wiesmeyer from Pro Farmer. So check all those out. Once again, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube. Very, very cool. You can also provide feedback by calling the RealAg feedback line. That number is 855-776-6147. I also should say a new episode of RealAg Politics drops as well today. We are action-packed. New content in all of those programs, too, by the way. So no shortage of content for you to consume for the rest of the week and heading into the weekend. Let's take a break. We'll get started with the Farmer Rapid Fire here on RealAg Radio, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. It's now time for a product spotlight with the Canadian Canola Growers Association. We're joined right now by Dave Gallant. Dave, for anyone who is unfamiliar with the cash advance from CCGA, give us a bit of a brief overview on the program and how it really works to help farmers.
It gives them access to cash flow for their inventory before they have to sell that inventory. There's no fee, and farmers have access to $350,000 interest-free and another $650,000 at prime minus 0.75% on over 55 different products. So it really assists farmers with their working capital needs, especially now in the fall. And lastly, farmers only have to pay a cash advance as they sell the product, so there's no monthly or quarterly payments required, which means they only pay when they have cash flow from a sale. Farmers can apply right now. If they are not an existing customer, they simply call us at 1-866-745-2256.
Looking for robust, reliable grain storage solutions? AGI leads the industry in quality, innovation, and offerings to protect your investment. Designed for exceptional cleanout, superior strength, and unbeatable versatility, you can rest easy knowing your grain is secure in an AGI West Steel bin. With 100 years of manufacturing experience, AGI West Steel bins will exceed your expectations for reliable storage. AGI West Steel. Long-term safe storage. Find AGI at your local dealer.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire into Renfrew, Ontario. We're talking to Charlene Wattam. Hey, Charlene, how's it going?
Good. How about you?
Oh, really good, really good. Of course, the Farmer Rapid Fire is brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. Okay, Charlene, let's talk about what's happening on the farm here this week. What are you up to?
So this week, we're taking a look, evaluating some fields to see if they're ready to harvest soybeans, and taking a look into some corn fields, see how they're coming along. There's lots of wheat going in the ground, not at my place, but lots of wheat in the countryside going in the ground for sure.
Are you going to plant wheat?
I won't. I don't think I'll have my soybeans off in time. We have a pretty short time frame in this neck of the woods to get beans off and get wheat in, and my beans are kind of behind.
Now, is the behind because of kind of pretty wet weather in your parts? No.
So, well, actually, it's probably drier here now than it was in July.
Crazy.
Like all the lawns are burnt up now. It's like cracks in the ground, dry. But my beans went in, and then it was dry for like 2 weeks afterwards, and it was worked ground, so getting planted to moisture was pretty variable. So they were kind of straggly, patchy as they came up, and so I think that kind of put them behind. So there's patches in the field that are still holding onto their leaves, and other patches look good, but yeah, on the whole, it's not going to come off very quick.
Well, we know, we've been talking to growers from the southwestern part of the province, very optimistic about yield on corn and beans. Are you as optimistic in your area of Eastern Ontario?
Corn looks really, really positive. I'm a little concerned that we did have a fair bit of variability in the fields. Like I said, we had a fairly dry period, kind of end of May, start of June, and there was a lot of variability in staging and emergence depending on where the moisture was first. And I'm a little worried that might end up showing up a little bit in the harvest, that there will be variability that's kind of hidden now. Everything sort of looks really even, but it may not be the case in the end. I always tend to be a little pessimistic until it gets in the bin. Beans look really, really good, but in a lot of fields, white mould has kind of taken the top end off the yield. Hasn't really taken anything out. A lot of the plants that I'm seeing, they still have beans, like it was a fairly late infection, but they're smaller beans and there's less of them, and the white mold plants are lodgy and kind of tangly, so getting that harvested through the combine is going to be a challenge too.
Yeah. Peter W.P. Johnson's been talking about white mold on Agronomic Monday for the past couple of weeks and some of the impacts there in some of the regions. How about, on Monday, he mentioned gibberella. Any signs of that in your parts?
There's definitely molds showing up, especially where ears have stayed more upright on the corn, and the moisture was definitely getting into that ear in August and early September. Now it's fairly dry, so it's just up to, I guess, how humidity carries on. We do have some pretty heavy dews too, which will carry on those types of infections. So it'll be interesting to see how it all comes out in the end.
It kind of like every year, right? There's the expectation, and then there's what the combine monitor shows. And like yesterday we were talking to Tyler Shao, market analyst from agmarket.net, and we were talking about some of the spring wheat yields that people have seen in the northern tier and in Western Canada, and people being a little bit, more on the surprise side compared to where their expectations were. I think it's just a natural thing for farmers maybe to be a little bit pessimistic, because it's like under promise, over deliver, as opposed to have high hopes and then it's like, oh man, that's all the yield was. It just depends on how you want to feel as you roll through the field in the combine.
Yes, I would much rather be pleasantly surprised than horribly disappointed.
When do you think your soybean harvest is going to start?
So probably my field, it'll be another week or so before they're ready, week or 10 days. Before it's evened out enough to all be ready, I think. There are fields in the area that are on the move. There are people taking beans off. I haven't really heard any numbers yet, though.
Well, is that an indication of what some of the yields are?
No, I think it's just an indication that everybody's busy running in every direction, trying to put in wheat and take off beans and run here and run there, spraying and everything else, right?
Yeah, that's very fair. I find it interesting. That's what, there's a lot of similarities between, different parts of Canada. One of the differences, though, is, for the most part, by the time that harvest is wrapped up in Western Canada, in Eastern Canada, where the majority of the beans and the corn is, harvest is just kind of getting underway. It's a lot longer growing season for sure.
Yeah, definitely a difference.
But like, when would you be hopeful you'd be wrapped up corn harvest if everything goes well?
If everything goes well, if you're done by Christmas, you're usually happy.
Yeah, see, that's significantly different for sure. Overall, has it been a pretty good? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
But storage is maybe more the holdup than the capacity to actually take the crop off. If it is a really big crop, we are going to struggle with getting space to put stuff till it can get out of the province.
Yeah. Do you have much on-farm storage? Are you hauling directly to the delivery point?
I have no on-farm storage. Everything we have goes directly to the elevator. So it's, a little bit dicey.
Yeah. And those lineups, I'd imagine, because everyone's trying to harvest at the same time a lot of time, is it a fairly quick turnaround, or how do you logistically manage that part of harvest?
It is a challenge. There has been a lot of storage built in the last few months in this area. There's been a lot of bins go up, dryers go up, people trying to plan ahead to have storage available, people picking up more wagons and making sure that they've got rolling stock to use. So the world is changing, but the crop is growing really quickly too. So it's definitely a challenge. Timing, trucks, all of that, yes. I know the trucking companies work really, really hard to keep things moving as quickly as possible. And definitely we all work to make ourselves as easy to deal with as possible so that we have loads ready to go on the truck so they can just keep turning it around, Yeah,
it makes me think that relationship with the delivery point in trying to work with you, and obviously they have their own issues and problems to deal with, but you kind of need to have that good relationship in order to have harvest on your end run as smoothly as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely very much a team effort, and creating those relationships and networks to work together and have the best end possible.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, hey, Charlene, thanks so much for joining us here today on the Farmer Rapid Fire. All the best to you as you get harvest rolling for soybeans and corn, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much.
We got one more stop in Ontario before we head west here on the Farmer Rapid Fire. You're listening to RealAg Radio, brought to you today by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
What's next for your fields? At Pioneer, delivering industry-leading genetics drives everything we do. From the scientists in the lab to our local teams with boots on the ground. We are determined to get there first. Developing top-performing products, proven in more growing conditions than ever before. Pioneer. What's next happens here. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more.
You know, there's a reason we call it the Corn School. Videos on everything from planter setup, weed control, field trial results, yield strategies, and so much more. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com has the information and advice you need to help you succeed. Brought to you by Pride Seeds and BASF, Corn School episodes are available at cornschool.com, from RealAgriculture.com, or as a podcast from your favorite streaming service. Download the latest podcast today.
Introducing the all-new Zerion 12 Series tractor by Kloss. Redesigned from the ground up to redefine the high-capacity four-wheel drive market. With 653 max horsepower, industry-leading hydraulic flow, a silky smooth CVT, a powerful TerraTrack undercarriage, and a quiet, comfortable cab with 20% more legroom. More than just power. The all-new Zerion by Kloss.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, to Atwood, Ontario. And we're talking to Steve Terpstra. Hey, Steve, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, Sean. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Okay, so you reside in Atwood, but right now you're rolling down the interstate somewhere in the U.S. Where are you headed?
We're just east of Chicago yet. We're on 94. I'm heading to the World Dairy Expo. I have some cows or some heifers heading down there. So
nice. Okay, that you're selling or showing, or what are you doing?
These ones, I'm just basically helping a friend out with the trucking. So that's, yeah, this is actually my first time heading to the Dairy Expo, so it should be interesting.
Well, I'll tell you, I've been about 3 or 4 times, Steve. I'm not going this year, but I will tell you this: my favorite media room of any conference I go to, because all it is cheese. And the artisan cheese that is at that show is amazing. Like, just you walk around that show, and there's booths with chocolate milk, and there's ice cream, and then there's ice cream sandwiches. Like, take your appetite.
Yeah, I guess I will do that.
Yeah, a lot of the dairy industry across the world will definitely be in Madison, Wisconsin for the World Dairy Expo. Great show. Well, while you're ripping down the interstate at 85 miles an hour, how are things in the field back home?
Things are coming along. I started into soybeans there on Monday. We're having a really nice stretch of weather. I hate to say it because we've had a wet summer, but we could actually use the rain to kind of slow the ripening down. So the beans the stems are a little green yet, so they're not combining the nicest I grow IP beans. So yeah, I got one field that's ready and a few fields that aren't yet. So it's a nice rain would even things up and yeah, would be good.
Are you seeing much white mold pressure in those IP beans?
I have one field that has some white mold in it. I didn't spray the fungicide. I kind of wish I did. But yeah, hindsight's 20/20, right?
Yeah, but Steve, what I've been hearing from some growers though is that even in the fields they did spray, they're seeing less pressure, but the white mold's pretty bad this year, and it's still having an impact on some of the yield. It's still taking some of that top-end yield off those fields, even though they did use a fungicide.
Okay, my sunflowers, even though I did spray them, I only sprayed them once. I was supposed to spray them again, but we had that fundraiser, we call it the Cadillac Farm Sunflower Walk.
Yep.
So we had that going through the field, so that kind of limited my accessibility to spray that field again.
Yeah.
So it was only sprayed once, and walking through that field, there's a fair bit of white mold there.
Yeah, it's definitely there's heavy pressure this year. It seems. Are you expecting top end yield on the corn this year? Or all I've been hearing about is it looks great. It's about 12 feet tall and a very, very good cob size.
There is very good potential.
Are you sandbagging me? Are you sandbagging?
This last 2 weeks would make this corn, because we've had unbelievable weather in September. We've been saved by September weather for a few years, because you get that early frost and it's hard on stuff, and corn was not near black layered before this stretch of weather. So it's looking like it could be a good year.
Well, that's good. You've got, so if you've got yield in your pocket, how's the marketing going on the from that standpoint?
Well, I sold a bunch. I probably should have sold a bunch more, but I have a good chunk of my corn sold to local local farmers as wet corn this year and corn silage. So it's on the marketing. It's the price at what it is when we harvest it. So couldn't pre-sell that. But I had some corn that sold pretty decently. So
good. Now, I've been talking to folks this week about Bill C-234. Now, this is the bill, the private members bill, that would give an exemption to some farmers as it relates to the carbon tax. On-farm grain dryers are one of those activities. Do you have an on-farm grain dryer, or are you requiring, when you do sell to the elevator, they're doing the drying for you?
They do the drying for me.
Oh, so that sucks, because you don't get the exemption.
Yeah, I had a crop dryer back when we farmed all with my brothers, but that was on the dairy farm, so I don't have it anymore, and haven't got a new one set up yet. So,
are you intending to, though?
It would be nice to have that. I'll see what the next couple of years does, and then we'll. It just opens your doors up for better marketing when you're not paying storage and all that kind of thing. So
how's that new shop working out?
Shop's awesome. It's so much better than working in what I used to work in.
Okay, well, I still got to get out there and see it.
One of these days, yeah.
Yeah. So it's fully functional now. It's all ready to go.
I'm still. I did order a workbench from a guy out eastern or western Canada somewhere, and then they got real busy, and then all of a sudden, planting and harvesting now, everything kind of gets delayed. So it's supposed to be ready in July, I believe, but now it'll be November, or December, or maybe even January. But for the most part, it's functioning. So.
Now, I know that farmers can be pretty loyal to the brand of machinery that they're using. Some are, some aren't. But, some people are, I only roll blue, or I only roll red or green. From a tool standpoint in your shop, are you loyal to a certain brand of tool, or it's kind of whatever you can pick up?
Whatever I can pick up. We got a really good hardware store, Millbank Hardware. It's like 10 minutes down the road. They have some pretty good selections of not like your Snap-ons or your stuff like that, but reasonable price tools.
Okay, you can pay a lot for tools.
Oh man, we got a buddy that's a mechanic, and he's it's a lot of money.
When that snap-on truck rolls into the yard, that thing should be like. I always think with the value of inventory in that truck, it should be like a Brinks truck.
Yeah, armored guards, yeah. You would think.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Steve, thanks so much for joining us here this week. All the best to you with harvest. I really hope the top-end yield comes in on that corn and the beans do surprise you as well. So all the best to you, okay?
All right, thanks a lot, Sean.
Well, hey, and enjoy the World Dairy Expo.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, if you have never been to the World Dairy Expo, I encourage you to go. Well, especially for you dairy farmers, like on the U.S. side and even from Canada. Multiple times I've been down, tons and tons of Canadians down at the World Dairy Expo. So please encourage you to check that one out. It is, and like I said, best media room ever. The one year I went, Bern Tobin and I went down. Bern went out and shot all the videos. I did a lot of the writing and worked on the video production for the media room. I won. I won because I just sat there and filled my face full of cheese for 2 days. Oh, yeah. Anyway, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue the Farmer Rapid Fire in Western Canada. You're listening to RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147, brought to you today by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
Dedication. Watching the sunset over your crop is one of life's simple pleasures. The anticipation of it all. We know that feeling. Introducing our new Airflex NXT, our best honeybee header yet with the closest cut ever. Light, fast reacting, and infinitely adjustable. More yield, less time and work. Airflex NXT focuses on the future. What drives your next? Visit honeybee.ca or contact your nearest honeybee dealer.
The Advancing Women Conference, the National Leadership Conference for Women in Ag, is celebrating 10 years of bringing women in ag together. Whether you're a producer, student, entrepreneur, representative of grower association, or corporate agribusiness, invest in yourself in Niagara Falls on November 19th, 20th, and 21st. Visit advancingwomenconference.ca for more information and to register.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, to Morris, Manitoba, and we're talking to Riley Anderson. Hey, Riley, how's it going?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you making out with this harvest season?
We're about half done harvest. We finished the cereals and the canola, and now we just have soybeans and corn left.
And how have the yields been?
All over the map. I wish I could tell you something different, but yeah, it's from one end of the spectrum where we're deep in crop insurance to pretty good yields in places.
So from your perspective, as you look at things as of what you know now, which crop has been kind of the best of the lot?
So far, canola's been the best, but I have a hunch that corn's going to beat it out here in the end.
That's what I've been hearing. That Manitoba corn crop looking not too bad.
Yeah, wherever we got it planted and got good emergence, we're going to have a very good crop. And where we didn't have very good emergence and we had some issues with the planter or had trouble getting our weeds or chemicals on early enough, we have very spotty emergence. So it's kind of a tale of two crops with that too.
Yeah, once again with corn, it so much of it goes. There's a lot of things, a lot of variables that impact that ultimately that yield at the end of the day. But that getting the crop out of the ground as quickly and as evenly as possible is just so critical.
Oh, it's huge. That's the number one thing. And to be honest with you, that's probably the number one thing in all crops. But corn is just a princess, so you have to be on your P's and Q's with that one more than everything else.
You don't want to step on any toes.
Yeah, exactly.
Which crop has been... See, I thought you were going to say the cereals look the best, like the wheat. What's been the disappointment for you this year?
So that has been a tale of rainfall for us this year. Right around the yard, we had a bumper crop of wheat, and then we have another kind of, not quite a satellite farm, but we got another chunk of land 16 to 20 miles away. And right around home, if we would have just had our wheat at home, I would say that was the best we had. But up north we were hot and dry early, and the wheat crop just couldn't withstand the heat in late May, early June, and it suffered pretty bad up there.
What are some of the logistical challenges that you need to overcome when you've got your home chunk of land, and then you've got another chunk that is 15, 16 miles away? What are some of the logistical challenges of that?
Trucking is always hard in harvest time. We try to move our rotation around so that we can have the majority of that land in one crop. That way we're not having to run up there with a sprayer a bunch of different times. But that doesn't always work out exactly how I plan. But the goal is to have it in 1 to 2 crops, and then have more of a rotation around home that spreads things out a bit. But the biggest issue with the distance for us is crop insurance averages us out, and that hurts us in the end more times than it helps us.
Do you have a bin site at the other pod of land?
No, everything comes home to the main yard.
So that does create some logistical challenges on the trucking.
Yeah, we struggle to grow oats and corn up there just because of the trucking challenges. That's more wheat, canola, soybean land for us right now with the way we're set up.
Okay. Now, I might have missed it, so if I'm repeating myself, forgive me. But the expectations on those soybeans, what are your thoughts there?
They're also all over the place. They're coming in better than I expected, but we have some droughtier beans that I'm expecting to be in crop insurance.
Oh, okay. So
I'm thinking that we're going to probably average out just above or right in crop insurance level.
Because you have now your area, it was much more drought stricken than you typically would see, correct? Like that area has faced some dry conditions through the earlier part of the growing season, right?
Yes. So in April we were wet, and we were trying to figure out if we were going to mud the crop in, and we were trying to dry land out and work ground early so we could get the crop in the ground. And then when the calendar turned over to May, the tap turned off, and we had no rain until the second week in June. There was some of our land caught half an inch in the second week in May, but that was less than a half inch of rain.
Wow.
And I have some fields now that I'm combining soybeans on that had 3 inches of rain all growing season.
And still, and those are the weaker fields. They're not surprising to the upside.
No, they're not surprising. There was one field that we were 3.5 inches, but 2 of those inches came in August, and that's a surprising to the upside on the soybean fields, but that's not widespread.
Kind of makes it hard for StatsCan and market analysts to sort out what they think the yield expectation is going to be, when even as farmers we have a hard time trying to sort out what the heck the yield's going to be, right?
Yeah, exactly. You can't, going by townships, there's probably 3 or 4 different types of crop or size of crop within a township in places here in the valley this year.
Oh, wow. How's the equipment run this year?
We've been very fortunate. We've been able to keep everything going pretty smooth, and we haven't had too many service calls, so that's always a plus.
Hey, I was asking another farmer earlier. Farmers are pretty loyal to their equipment, the color, right? Some people are all green or blue or red or whatever. But when it comes to tools in your shop, are you loyal to certain brands, or is it kind of whatever you can find?
We're kind of whatever you can find. When it comes to power tools, we're on the DeWalt side just because batteries match better, and that's kind of just what we stuck with. But as far as wrenches go, we have a cheap set of wrenches that go in the toolboxes that go to the fields, and we try and have some nicer wrenches in the shop that stay in the shop, so we're not going to lose them down in the field when we're fixing.
Are you when you're working on stuff in the shop, are you a wipe your tools down kind of person, or you just throw them back in the drawer?
So we have we have enough people in the shop that all of the above.
Okay, I get it. And, I think a lot of people are doing sort of what you said, where it's you got a cheaper set of tools that are going out in the tractor out to the field because, I don't know, what percent of the wrenches that go out to the field get planted somewhere? It's way more than we would like to see.
If wrenches would grow, I'd be a very rich man.
Yeah, I like it. Well, hey, Riley, thanks for joining us here this week. Really appreciate it. All the best to you for the rest of your harvest. And I really hope that corn crop comes through and meets some of your expectations.
Thank you. We're hoping so too, but we're very fortunate to farm where we do, and we've been very fortunate the last number of years to have the crops we've had. So I won't complain about one bad year.
I love Riley's positive attitude. Yeah, even with all the adversity we face in this industry, we got to keep it in perspective. We're fortunate. We're lucky. We are quite blessed to be able to do what we do on a daily basis, producing commodities and food, fuel, fiber, all of those kinds of things. So, like Riley just said, not the best of years, but you got to keep things in perspective, especially when you compare it to even some other industries and what they've been going through as there's been a bit of an economic downturn. Agriculture is still a pretty good place to be. Doesn't mean we don't have challenges, but we do have to keep things in perspective. Well put, Riley, indeed. Let's take a break. We've got more coming up here on the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
At Brett Young, we focus on what's real. It's how we became Canada's largest independent seed company. That's why we're asking a real farmer, what do you think of BY6217TF, Brett Young's TrueFlex Canola Hybrid?
What's that?
BY6217TF, Brett Young's TrueFlex Canola Hybrid with Pod Defender shatter reduction technology and Defender-rated club root and blackleg resistance.
Good yield, yeah. Probably choose it again.
Thanks, Chris. Talk to your Brett Young retailer today to see for yourself. Brett Young, distinct by design.
What's next for your fields? At Pioneer, delivering industry-leading genetics drives everything we do. From the scientists in the lab to our local teams with boots on the ground, we are determined to get there first. Developing top-performing products, proven in more growing conditions than ever before. Pioneer. What's next happens here. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire into Radisson, Saskatchewan. We're talking to Corey Loessin. Hey, Corey, how's it going?
Very well, Shaun. Thanks.
Yeah, it's great to chat with you. Of course, the Farmer Rapid Fire here every week is brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. Hey, Corey, I know you're done harvest. How did things work out?
We are finished. Finished a couple weeks ago, I think, and I just read on Twitter this morning, or X, that, if you're done harvest already, you mustn't have enough land. I thought, well, one way of looking at it.
I actually don't think that's how it works, Corey.
I don't think so either. We had a good run of harvest. Like we started early, actually record early, August 6th on lentils. So got a good early start. Most of what we did was dry or nearly dry. We did have a number of rain showers, little ones through the harvest time. The biggest was a half an inch, but then just little sprinkles that would stop us for a morning or something, or require a bit of drying. But cruised right along, and finished a couple of weeks ago. So harvest was smooth.
Okay, now I want you to you correct me if I'm wrong here, but the feeling I've been getting, now this is not in all parts, but this is I'm sort of broad brushing it here, but there's a lot of people have been telling us here in the Farmer Rapid Fire that yields came above their expectations. How did yours work out?
I would echo that for sure.
Okay.
Actually, our yields on virtually all crops are really close to our 10-year average, which was almost, I would say, shocking. I mean, I was expecting much less. Driving by, you would guess less. Really, 4 inches or so of growing season rain on top of dry soils to start with. So very low precipitation in our area, yet a decent yield and good quality on I guess pretty much everything. So very, very unusual. I think part of it was we got a good rain near the end of May, and that kind of got everything going and set up, and then it made roots after that. So yeah, we were pleased. Nothing earth-shattering other than our one irrigation quarter went very well, but otherwise, I mean, yeah, close to average yield. So can't complain about that.
Yeah, no, that's a good news story. Because I remember last time you were on the show here, we were talking about how dry it was and how you were really concerned. So that is a good ending. But we can't ignore the fact that 4 inches of rain throughout the season, heading into 2024. Your area and many others in parts of Saskatchewan, including Alberta, we need some fall moisture.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yes, these few showers through harvest kind of wet the top a wee bit. But yes, again, no stored or very low stored soil moisture. So good fall rains would be nice. Nothing's happened yet, but maybe October, and that would sure be welcome. Yeah, this whole region, I think most of the prairies, other than the Edmonton region, is kind of looking for that.
Yeah. It does kind of amaze you, like when you get as little rain that you had with the reserve that you had. It is kind of amazing what like some of the genetics, I guess, can do in 2023. What else do we chalk it up to besides you mentioned the May rain? But what else? It kind of leaves you sort of clueless.
It's a bit interesting, and I think genetics, yes, that's one of the components. I think long-term zero-till is another one of the components, and the improvement we've seen in soil health. Like we definitely have seen on our longest farmland in zero-till an increase in organic matter, and I've got numbers, soil test numbers to back that up. But I think that is a factor. And there's other things must be, though, because we did have a fairly warm June, but not scorching hot. July was sort of more moderate in temperature. Because when you look back to, say, 21, it rained less, but it was hot for a while, and the crop was just very poor. So there must be a number of factors. Maybe even nutrition placement in the soil is another factor that helps to develop the roots and pull them down into the soil more when they need to go that way. I don't know. Yeah, it'd be interesting to know all the factors. I don't think it's one thing. I think it's a combination. But
good point. I think that heat, or that lack thereof, or that scorching heat like we saw in 21, I agree with you. I think that for sure is a fact. It bought you some time, so to speak, right? Now,
yes.
What does the fall work schedule look like? You got a bunch on tap. You got harvest done, so now what do you do?
Well, we've got more projects than we're going to get to as usual. Yeah. I mean, right at this moment, I'm doing some fall spraying, some for winter annuals, the odd field for perennial weeds. So we're just about to wrap that up, and then going to do some sulfur spreading, elemental sulfur on the future canola fields. Do a bit of that, and also going to put some granular herbicide edge down on a few select fields, mostly for kochia suppression. Like to keep that group 3 in the chemical rotation. Kochia is a big problem, and that's new for us, kind of. Like this area hasn't been really a kochia area, but wow, has it got established, and got to try and do everything to keep it at bay.
Yeah.
And I think that is very common as well through the sort of the dry areas. So yeah, we're doing a number of things like that. Plus the building projects. We always have something going on. So yeah, we're gonna maybe make a pad for another new shed at some point. So dirt moving and that sort of thing.
Great stuff. Well, and I've been hearing about this movement of kochia, that it has moved in some of the areas that are a little bit more on the drier bias side. We are seeing expansion of that outside of that traditional kochia territory. Now, for somebody that has grown up in a very, very strong kochia area, I'm sorry to hear this news, because kochia is the worst.
Oh man, it's just everywhere. Like it's across some of the fields in the good land area. I mean, there was always sort of in the salty spots or something, bits of kochia, but we're seeing it across some of the good fields. I'm a little hard on Roundup tolerant canola, to be honest, because, some percentage of it, maybe a significant percentage, is now resistant to Roundup. And so if you're not getting control on that canola year, yikes, that's really bad. So I think, generally speaking, we've all got to sort of up our game. And yes, drier bias years, warm, so it's a C4 plant. It likes to grow in those warm, dry conditions, as do a few others. But yeah, we've got to get serious about trying to curtail the stuff. And it does have it's got a quick dormancy on the seed. So if you can maintain reasonable control and get the seeds germinated, but then kill them, I think it's possible to sort of turn this around. But yeah, it needs attention for sure.
Yeah, that crap would grow on the moon if planted there.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Some of it, if it's left unchecked, you obviously have to hook a tractor to the stuff to pull it out, right? Like it grows big, and grows all season pretty much. It's just a nasty thing that. Again, it was one of those weeds brought to North America for a forage crop, from what I understand. And yeah, it's done well.
Yeah, it's done well, yeah. We haven't figured out how we can actually just harvest it, because it'll grow in any condition. Our yield concerns would be put to bed, to be honest with you. And like you're saying, lentils, like that's where you can really see it wreak some havoc, is if you don't have it under control, it pops through, like it would pop through a lentil canopy very easily. But even on something like yellow peas, it can be really difficult. And then harvest becomes a major bloody challenge.
Oh, it does, yes. Green kochia, that's pretty tough to put through a combine. So lots of people just kind of try to go around the spots and whatever. Rakelone or Diquat dries it down really quite well. So that's a positive. Say if you have to spray a canola crop before harvest. And in lentils, if it's not too heavy, we've been having really good luck with late fall applied fierce, and then lentils the following year. It does a great job on keeping the kochia down for a good chunk of the year, really. So and lets the lentils get up and going. Yeah, challenging.
Well, hey Corey, all the best to you in all your fall work, and we'll check in with you a little bit closer to the end of the year. Okay, thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome, Shaun. Great to talk to you.
And we finish off this week's Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, by talking to Nicci Rasmussen. She is Pioneer Area Agronomist for Southern Alberta and British Columbia. Nicci, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Shaun. Always happy to be here.
Okay, now you're out in your truck right now, and you're out looking at some fields. Are you looking at canola right now?
No, today is corn rating day for grain corn, but I've been in a lot of canola fields this fall as well.
Okay. And Nicci, what are some of the things that you're seeing this year that in your territory that are kind of worth noting here to make sure our audience is advised if they're in the Southern Alberta region?
Yeah, I think, let's focus on, canola probably affects most of your listeners. This fall in Southern Alberta, we were seeing some kind of canola plants looking like they died prematurely, and we got out walking some fields, sent some samples in, and we found a few fields here that have been confirmed for verticillium wilt. So it might be a good idea for, growers to maybe get out in their fields, have a look at the stubble, check out the Canola Council website for ideas what to look for revert. But it's definitely showing up here in Southern Alberta. It likes these dry conditions. Often it'll be accompanied by blackleg, and a lot of its symptoms look very similar to blackleg, so it can be hard to diagnose. The U of A is offering doing some testing, or the PSI lab in Manitoba is really good, and they can run some really quick PCR testings to confirm it. I think it's going to be of interest a lot and a big learning curve for a lot of us to kind of get up to speed on this disease that's somewhat new to our area and understanding how to manage it going forward. Hopefully, I don't think it's causing tremendous yield loss, but it's definitely something we're going to have to keep our eye on.
So whether it's blackleg or verticillium, why is it important to know, if you are seeing some of those symptoms, why is it important to know one or the other? Is that a factor into dealing with hybrid selection when we get to the fall here?
Yeah, it can be hybrid selection, and I think a lot of our seed companies are just getting into understanding vert and how their products react and stand to it and rate for it. So it's understanding that. Maybe it's an adjustment to your rotation. If it isn't vert and it is just blackleg, you can manage that with some hybrid rotation, but also seed treatment choices are available in the market to manage blackleg as well. So when you're making your seed purchase this fall, if you have some blackleg you got to keep an eye on in your fields. You can choose a seed treatment that'll help you with that. So, all good information to have so we can make the best choices possible.
Well, like you mentioned, you're out to corn crop, and I have driven around parts of southern Alberta as well. Most of the corn here in southern Alberta is for silage because of all the feeding of cattle that happens in this region. Yep. Pretty good corn crop out there.
Yeah, it's been a fun year to be in a corn seed business for sure. I think, without a doubt, we're seeing some of the highest yields I've ever seen in my career this year. And our irrigation farmers have faced a lot of challenges, like in the area where you're from with some early season irrigation limitations to the BRID here with late season limitations. So, it's been a bit of a challenge helping growers manage their limited water through the season, but it's really exciting to see some of these big yields come off. Silage, and I'm sure we got some big grain corn crops out there to come off yet too. So that's been a lot of fun this year.
Yeah, we've been hearing out east about some of the height of the corn crop. Some of the corn like 12 feet tall. I don't know what the height is of some of the corn here, but it's not a lot less than that. It looks fantastic from a height perspective and from a cob size.
Yeah, and the quality's coming off like excellent too. I was talking with one of our sales reps up in the Red Deer, Lacombe, Ponoka area, and high yields and high starch, great quality silage for the dairies up there. So overall, corn has done remarkable this year, and it just kind of goes to show, even in our dry years, on dry land acres, corn can, yield a lot more than people expect. So that's been fun and exciting, especially in a year where we're really feed limited out here in the western prairies. It's been nice to see corn kind of really pick up the slack.
Yeah, and during the commercial break, you and I were talking about storage, and great reminder that you pointed out to me in terms of remember to check your bins, especially if some of that grain went in at relatively high temperature.
So many farmers this year have put a lot of crop in the bin at very high temperatures, like lots of grain going in the bin on days, well above 25 Celsius, lots in the 30s. So always a reminder to guys, down here in the far south, people have been done harvest for a few weeks. Get out there, check your bins, maybe start turning some bins over a bit to cool them down. But that hot seed can cause a lot of storage issues, through the winter if we're not on top of it. I know a lot of guys have bin monitoring systems, but we've got to still be on top of things and take a look and, check for damages.
Yeah, great reminder. Hey, Nicci, I'll let you get back to the scouting. I know you got lots of acres to cover, so thanks so much for joining us here today, and appreciate Pioneer Seeds Canada for being the sponsor of the Farmer Rapid Fire.
Thanks, Shaun.
Okay, we covered a lot of ground here again today, like we always do every week, and we were hearing about some bright spots. There's a lot of anticipation of this corn crop and what the yield could be in parts of Ontario. It's looking quite good. We're also hearing some encouraging things from a production standpoint in parts of Western Canada where yields are better than people thought. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Okay. There may be a readjustment on some of the production number, but we don't want to see people have no crop. I don't know why we cheer against that sometimes, or some of our attitudes around just talking about how things worked out better than we thought they would. That's okay. But we do have places where things are a big disappointment, and that's quite true. We heard about that today from Riley Anderson. Not a great year. There are other parts. Hey, I live in a part of the country where quite tragic in terms of some of those dry land yields. So definitely a lot of variability across the country, a lot of different challenges, and Mother Nature has treated some well and others not so quite that much. If you have any feedback on today's show, send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the Real Ag feedback line, 855-776-6147. Big shout out to Pioneer Seeds Canada for being our sponsor of the Farmer Rapid Fire. Thank you so much for getting real and getting connected with Real Ag Radio.